From Tumwater, Washington, going out to the 5 counties and beyond. No Shhh, it's the TRL Podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Annalisa, and we are your hosts for the library podcast that talks about more than just books. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Annalisa.
How are you?
Fantastic, as usual.
How are you feeling about today's episode?
Well, this should be one of the easiest ones we've ever done because I am really unprepared and I don't have to be prepared.
Right, because I'm really excited about today's episode because it's an Ask Us Anything episode.
Anything, ask us anything.
And we've been working on this for a few weeks. We've been collecting some questions on our website, on social media. We've gotten some interesting questions. And so I'm excited about this episode because I get to you're kind of a guest on this episode.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at most of the questions myself either. I've been trying not to pay attention to them, even though they're like right over here next to me. I'm not looking at it.
You've been working very hard to avoid the questions because you wanted there to be a little bit of spontaneous answers, which I can respect. But I do know the questions. And so I feel like the person, when you're playing Trivial Pursuit, maybe this is too niche or maybe it's a universal experience, but it's so much fun to be the question asker.
The power of being the question asker, yes. So.
You can take your time with it and everyone's just kind of
you
at your
get to
mercy.
Put other people on the spot. Yeah, I see. I can see why that's appealing.
So I get to be the question asker today, and there will be some questions that I weigh in on, but I'm really excited because we're going to have a couple of our staff on. We're having a library manager and longtime librarian, some of our awesome staff that we love to spend time with whenever we're at the Yelm branch specifically.
Yeah, you get to ask all the questions, and we just have to try and be funny. Not a challenge at all.
That comes so naturally to you.
No.
All right, well, let's have our guest come.
Let's do it. All right, we're here in the podcast studio with two guests from the Yelm Timberland Library. To my left, we got Dr. Nate Ramos, the only PhD that we've had on the podcast so far that I know of.
Right, that we know of.
Unless there's a secret PhD. And to his left,
I want to introduce Stefan Abuan. And a few call outs here because Stefan not only composed, but also performs the intro and outro music from the podcast. So I think that you get a little shout out in the outro of the episodes, but in case people don't listen that far, that is who wrote and performed our music, which is
famous.
You're a little bit famous, but you're also kind of famous because you are the star of a lot of our social media reels and TikToks for the Timberland Regional Library social media. So you're a popular star of those. And I also want to mention that you will be retiring from TRL soon, and you've been with TRL for 18 years, extremely beloved. We're lucky to have you for a few more months. I know Nate's probably happy to have you for a few more months. Every time I'm at the Yelm branch, there are families that will come up to me and tell me how important you are to them and how much they love your story times, and their family looks forward to seeing you and how you make them feel so welcome. And so you're both wonderful people to have on this episode. You have a lot of experience, library manager. You give me your title again, Stefan, because it's not just librarian or librarian.
Yeah, it's public services specialist.
Right. So that's very official.
Yeah.
It's very important.
I fully expect that this episode is going to get a lot more views because of your presence. So once the Yelm folks find out that you were the guest on this episode, I'm looking for this one to the views and engagement to go through the roof. So we're counting on you.
Well, you guys are way too nice. Thank you. That's a really lovely intro. Much appreciated. And yeah, for the TikTok videos and the Instagram, that's you. You just feed me lines, and then I go in my office for a minute and I practice it, miming. So yeah.
That's what makes you great, though, is that you practice. I mean, I always think that that's so special that you'll be like, okay, let me take this and practice. So if anybody doesn't know, I've kind of alluded to it in previous episodes, but I am the person behind the scenes, behind the camera for our social media content. So now you know.
Social media mastermind.
I think we should dive into the questions. And I'm going to start us off with, I think, a pretty easy one from Sarah, who asked us, if you drop a book off, does it count as returned that day, or does it count as returned whenever a staff member scans it?
So it is returned when we actually process it. So you drop it off. Let's say you put it in the book drop. We then grab it, scan it, check it in, and then it's officially returned after we scan it in.
Well, I think it's important to note that it's not maybe as important as it once was because we don't have late fees. So I know that when I return a book, I'm not particularly concerned about if you know that I turned it in on a Friday.
Usually. And there are library systems that have technology where you can return a book and it checks it in as you check it in. They use the RFID tags, and we also use those. We just don't have any of the self-service check-in points like some library systems do. Yeah. So it's possible. You may have seen it if you use a library that does that.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes some families will come in and they've reached their checkout limit. So like the book drop is full. I just returned everything, but I can't check out because it says that I've reached my limit. Just tell a staff member, say, hey, all my stuff's in the book return. Will you help me check these out?
I love that. And the limit it's 50?
Yeah.
Yeah, 50.
Well,
so how often are people reaching their limit? That's good to hear.
Quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it happens quite a bit. We see it a lot with families. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're coming to the library once a week. You have 3 or 4 kids. You're getting, 10 books for each one to read for bedtime. Mm-hmm. You do it for the week. Okay, 5 days. Now we're at 40 books, 30, 40 books. They drop those off. But then so it might take us a little bit of time to process those. But then, they try to check out other books and then they're doing it again and they get 20 in, but then they get the warning that you're over limit. Mm. So that's when we see it. It's a lot of story time. We're not seeing a lot of reading, James Patterson books, 50 copies of that. It's a lot of children's books and children's material and like combination of that and movies and some of the stuff for the parents and like just a combo of all that.
Yeah, the movie people will often check out a bunch all at once.
Our next question is from Abigail. Is your chat a live person? If so, what was the hardest question or what question surprised you? Do people really, this is like a 5-parter. Do people really ask about helping you find a book by the cover color? I saw your TikTok on it. Thank you for watching and was so surprised.
I can say it is a live person. We don't use any chat bots. Our chat service is an actual staff member. We don't get as many chats these days as we did in the height of the pandemic. But yeah, if you use our chat service, you're talking to a real person.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All the libraries in the system, we take turns with staff members. For example, we do about 10 hours per month of chat service. Mm-hmm. And we split that up amongst our staff. Our library assistants generally do about 6 hours. Our librarians do about 4 hours. And then we usually also flex and do coverage when someone gets sick and stuff happens. So Stefan does it. I do it. All our staff take turns doing the chat service. So if it takes us a little bit, we're reading it and we're processing it in real time. Mm-hmm. So you absolutely do interact with individuals.
Mm-hmm. When I read this question, I actually thought of you, Stefan, because I remember you telling me that people will be chatting with you and asking you like if you're a robot or if you're a real person.
I remember that.
So can you think of like any of the wildest questions you've gotten on live chat?
I think some of the funniest ones, but before I say that, I want to thank Chris. He trained us a lot and helped us develop the chat service. So
I am partially responsible for making people do chat.
I think some of the funniest periods were during the pandemic. We'd have a lot of students who would come in and they would ask us like, I just want to talk to somebody. Look, it's a free chat and it's safe. My parents said I could do it.
I haven't really gotten too many challenging questions. It's a lot of do you have this book? And can we, sometimes people need help with interlibrary loans, mm-hmm. which allows us to get books from pretty much anywhere in the country. So we can kind of put a request out to, if we don't have something in our physical collection, to get something brought to us. So sometimes people need a little bit of extra help because maybe they're not familiar with how to do that. So, I get a lot of random stuff like that. I haven't gotten too many crazy or zany stuff. Mm-hmm. But that's just luck of the draw. Sometimes some people will, it's like, why do I keep getting the weird ones? Well, it's just luck of the draw. Sometimes that's it's lunchtime. that's what
Sometimes
you get at lunch.
Attract the weird stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
maybe
there
it's
you
just
go.
something that you bring to the table.
So go ahead.
And then one more thing to think about. If you go into our chat service and you expect an answer right away to your question, sometimes we don't have that answer right away. So we can generate a ticket, which goes to all library staff. And then we can look at those and answer them as we see them. So we have besides the chat service, we have a resource of other library staff who will see that, who may be more knowledgeable about it. So yeah.
Well, to address the latter half of that question, I know this for sure, even having not worked in libraries, that people really do ask you to help them find books based off of very little information all the time, right?
I mean, I have had someone say, I read a book in like second grade and I remember the color was red and it was generally about this. So sometimes we'll get something like that where what we can look at is like summer reading lists, look at what books might have been popular at that time. Maybe, within like a 5-10 year period. And then we have like a general ballpark idea. And then you just look through through book covers and go, okay, here's this. So it is possible that we get those where it's, sometimes there's that vague, I just need something from this time period. So, there's a lot of that we do get, but it's usually kind of one-off unique scenarios. But yeah, occasionally that does happen.
Always feels good when you can find that book for the person or that, whatever they're looking for, a book or movie. But sometimes you are fighting against the fallibility of human memory. So, you read this thing 20 years ago, you may remember elements of it that, weren't actually in the book. And so then we're kind of going down the rabbit hole, but we always try really hard. And oftentimes we can be really, really lucky and get that for you, or magical, depending on how you look at it.
And we may have a new version of that book with a different cover. So it might be the same book, but it might have been recovered too. So,
and then you post on TikTok about it and you get 500-600 people asking for.
I don't remember how many comments there were. I know. So to talk about this TikTok, it was about this very subject. It was about how librarians and library staff are kind of magical and can find a book based off of very few details. And usually it's a book from your childhood. It's something nostalgic for you. It's something that you read and you remember these kind of few details about it. And you haven't been able to find it. So we did a TikTok about that. It got over 1 million views. And the comments just came rolling in. So at first it was like the first 10, 15, 25, 30, I was like, maybe we can answer all of these. Because all of the comments were, oh, can you help me find this book? We got DMs. I felt so bad because it quickly went past our capacity of what we could help people with. But it was really cool though, because people were so, like I said, so nostalgic. It really hit some sort of like special memory for them. And then they started kind of helping each other in the comments. So if you were in that comment section and we didn't answer it, I'm sorry. We can't. It's too many. It's too many and it's too hard.
Maybe talk to your local librarians.
Yes, that is what we did, a follow-up video saying, like your library staff would love to help you. So you need to go see them and kind of give them these details in person because
for some of those people, that might be us, but I don't think all 1 million of them.
I like this next question because it's very specific and I don't know the answer to it. So it's, why is printing $44 and not $45? So to specify, what they're saying is we get with your library card, you get $44 of free printing per month. And the question is, so why is it 44, not 45? And also, can small businesses get it? It seems like they are the ones who would use it or at least help the most.
So
you go right ahead.
So also, I will say on the small businesses, it actually isn't the people who, at least at Yelm, who use it the most. The people that use it the most are actually homeschool families. We have a lot of homeschool families. August and September is kind of our peak season. We can actually look at how many pages were printed at our library. Thanks to our awesome creative services and people who in our IT department who help manage the databases. But you can actually see like, oh, okay, this is how many pages were done. But homeschool families will come in and they'll print the entire coursework. They'll print all the things that they need. Families will print coloring sheets. A lot of what we see is also at the end of the month, since it kind of, you get more money replenished on the first. At the very end of the month, we'll see a surge, and at the beginning of the next month, those homeschool families will return. We're also doing a lot of clubs and events for homeschool families to provide them with extra hours so that we can connect with them and support them. So homeschool families are definitely a lot of the people using the printing, not necessarily small businesses, but it is a vital service for those families, because without it, those kids might not they might be working from a tablet or working from something else. And and it's not the same. There's something definitely beneficial about that physical paper when you're doing the homework and all that. So homeschool families, a big group that uses that printing. But the 44 versus 45,
I was trying to remember that because Stefan, you predate me at TRL, and I do remember when we made that switch, because previously it was 100 pages a week.
Yeah.
And at 10 cents per black and white page. And if you go in the course of a given month, I think this is true. People can fact check me on this, but 100 pages a week in an average month would be 400 pages in 4 weeks. So not every month has exactly 4 weeks, and I think somewhere the math worked out where it's 44 instead of 45. But I don't know exactly where that came from, to be completely honest.
I'm not sure either, actually.
You'll have to fact check me on the institutional accounts too, but I do believe it's only the individual library card accounts, and you two are closer to the branch situation than me, but I don't believe that business and institutional accounts can get the printing. But if you had like 5 employees, you could all have individual accounts and use that.
That's what I was going to say. Is there's nothing from stopping you from being a small business owner and having a library card and doing your $44 a
I suppose
month
then
printing.
you're mixing your business and pleasure use for the library. I guess there's that argument, but
I would say this. So anybody who's watching who has kids in the school district, my TRL, those students also get free printing every month, $44. So if you're a student, in Olympia School District, Yelm? I'm not sure what school districts are.
A lot of
them.
But
I would encourage you, ask your kids if they have a My TRL card. You might ask their teachers, and that's additional printing.
Yeah, most of them do, actually. I think we have partnerships with almost all of the schools in our district. So the kids might have 2 accounts, functionally speaking. They have their MyTRL account, and if they have an individual, then they would get separate printing allotments for each of those. So yeah, good point.
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up. And this, just while we're on the topic of printing, I think people ask about this a lot, or they don't necessarily know that you do get $44 worth of printing credit, but you can also use that toward making copies. So it's not just printing, and you can use the copy machines to scan things and send them via email, and that doesn't cost anything. So if you're just doing scanning and you're sending yourself PDFs or image files, that's totally free. That doesn't count against any sort of balance. And faxing too. We do faxing for free. If that's, I'm always surprised how many people need that, because this is 2024. You'd think we wouldn't be doing faxing anymore, but yeah, it's still a thing.
Well, that kind of segues nicely to our next question, I think, from Tracy, which is, what is something you'd like the general public to know about Timberland Library that you do not feel gets promoted enough? And that just reminded me of that, because this printing, although I feel like I talk about it a lot online, my kids' teacher, like we were just talking about, it was brand new to them, and they did all their printing for all their back to school stuff for their classroom at the library, but said, I didn't know. So that's one of the many things that I think not a whole lot of people know about, or more, I wish more people knew about it. But what comes to mind for you, for what you think people don't know about, you would like to be promoted more?
When you get a library card and you go to our website, it asks you to make a user account or a username. So people ask, why? Why do I need to do that? Well, it still maintains your privacy. But the advantage with having that is you can post book reviews in our catalog now, and you can make lists for other readers. Like, let's say you're a homeschool family. These are the books our family reads, and here's a list I created. So sometimes it helps me to help somebody else find a book that's like this. Oh, here's a list somebody made, and they shared that out. So it's a really good thing to know about. It's sort of like a read-alike. How do I find a book like this?
You can also enable browsing, which allows you to save like, oh, I checked this book out 3 months ago and it's there. Like I can't remember what book I read. You can enable browsing. By default, for your privacy, it is not enabled in our system. So you do have to enable it. We also don't, in our system, we don't have a way to actually track it. So
we can't see it.
Yeah, all we can do is check in the books and check them out. We don't track your actual usage. So literally we don't know who's checking out what. So there's no Netflix algorithm promoting books or anything like that. So that's kind of cool for us or for you if you in your account to enable your history. Just that way you can go back and go, oh yeah, I remember this book. I want to reread it.
And to clarify, these are all relatively new things that you can do with our catalog because we got a new, we have a new website, but how would you, a new catalog? I mean,
it is a new catalog. Yeah. About a year ago, actually, last October, we launched our new website, totally redesigned, and has some of the social features that Stefan was talking about. Actually, these are really great answers. I was kind of puzzling because I probably would have talked about the printing services because they're so utilitarian. But you're right, like all the different social features on the website, the events calendar is new, the catalog's new, the website itself is all new. So
new app, that's important
new app,
too.
Yes, I don't talk about the app enough.
It's called TRL Go, and everyone needs to download it.
Yes, it is really good. I will say I've been in a lot of different library systems where the app is not great. Ours is legitimately good.
Yeah.
It works really well, and I encourage everyone to have it. It also stores your library card. So if you ever are at self-checkout, you can just pull out your phone, boom, scan your phone, and there you go.
Well, it stores multiple cards as well,
yes.
too, if your children
put
have
your whole
cards.
family in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll also say, as far as like things that are like people should know, is you can ask us for stuff if you're really interested in if something that the library doesn't have. I had teens walk up to us and they wanted to do Dungeons and Dragons. So I created Dungeons and Dragons for our team or for our teens. And I was DMing sessions with 15 kids, which normally you only do 8 kids at a time. Or 8 people at a time. And it really pushed my limits as far as managing 15 different kids and their characters and memorizing all their things and everything going on. But there's programs, there's events. If you're into music, if you want, more like a little mini concert or a musician to come out, someone that plays classical music or whatever, you can always ask us. Never hesitate to recommend or suggest stuff. We're very open-minded. We want things that are fun and enjoyable for everyone. And while we can't always make everything possible, your feedback actually gives us energy and enthusiasm and makes us want to wake up in the morning and help and create stuff for you guys. So the more you communicate with us, the more we can have stuff that is representative of your interests and that you enjoy.
What Nate said, we'd like you guys to know, people who are watching, use us. We're here for you. And we love stretching out, make us dig into our resources because we have a great library staff that you don't even see in your branch. Other people are working equally hard in other library branches and really make us say, have you guys considered doing this? And we'll try to find a way.
I'm doing a salsa night, for example. So yes, we can make stuff happen. So even me,
dancing or eating,
teaching how to dance salsa. Yes, maybe we could do how to make your own salsa. Do different flavors. We could do that too.
To clarification, I was just immediately dancing because I would absolutely not want to be doing that. And I'm like, oh, you're so great for doing that. I would never. But salsa, if we're making it to eat, I'm game.
This question comes from Charlie. What drew you to work at the library? Share a positive, heartfelt story. There are not enough of those shared. I'm sure you've touched someone or helped someone, or at least they've touched you.
So what drew me to work at the library? Honestly, at the time I was a musician. I was struggling financially. And a friend of mine who works at the library said, "Hey, you should get a job at the library. It's easy." And this is back in 2001, when I was a sub. So I got in. But I guess the main thing, what's kept me at the library is like being a presenter of story times is one thing, or dispensing knowledge or information. I've learned how to listen. Like from all those conversations I have with kids at the library, and just listen. So tell me about this. So tell me about it. That's my mantra now. Tell me more.
For me, I used to be a reporter. I used to work as a sports reporter.
You're such a renaissance man. Like, what haven't you done?
So, it's like, I've worked in a mechanic shop. I was a sports reporter.
You're telling us that you were you did radio show hosting.
I was a radio DJ and a VJ. I hosted a music video show. So I've done a lot of random stuff, but like I was professionally a reporter. And the thing that got to me was that you're on the sidelines, you watch, you're the fly on the wall. And that's great. And that's important. And there's a lot of value in that. And definitely reporters and journalists are massively important in society. But I got tired of sitting on the sidelines and seeing something happen and not being able to do something and not being able to serve the community. So as a reporter, you might see homelessness and you might just be like, there's homeless. Okay, here's what's going on in the community. As a librarian, we can actually get involved. We can provide services. We can provide resource guides. During last winter, we were working with a community organization, and they had a coupon for like a hotel stay. Love Abounds, and they gave us this, and they said, if you see anyone come into the library who might need this, just give them this and give them our number, and we'll support and we'll help them. And so I did. And I gave it to one of our patrons who needed a place to stay. And so on one of the coldest nights in winter, we were able to, through a community partner, provide him with a place to sleep that kept him alive. Mm-hmm. Those things that you can do as a librarian and get off the sidelines and help your community, engage with them, make things better in maybe not, and you're not changing the world, but you're making a little corner of the world a better place. Whether it's helping kids learn and understand colors and shapes and engage with others and make friends, or you're actually, providing those services, or you're just making someone happy because you found their favorite TV show and you got a disc and now they can stay in for the weekend and watch their favorite show. It's not just about, big things, it's the little things, and being able to take away barriers of money and lack of access, and providing internet and computers and park passes and backpacks for beekeeping and a million other things that we provide. That's what gets me excited and what I love about being a librarian. You're not just on the sidelines, you're not watching, you're part of the community, and you're doing things to make your community a better place.
I'm not going to be anywhere near that inspirational. I will say to Nate, your comment, it often is the little things that you help people with that have an outsized importance in their life that you may just do as a matter of course. Helping someone, navigate an application for benefits on the internet. Like if you're not a tech savvy person and you don't have kind of a family or a friend support system for people who can help you do that, you don't have internet access at home, you might not have anyone else you can ask, obviously, to help you with that, or help you navigate your new smartphone or your laptop, or help you print something. But we can do that at the library. And these are really like small things that we do every day. But to the people that you help, they can have a huge impact in their lives. They can help them get a job or get benefits or connect with a relative. I helped someone set up a Facebook account and get connected with people he hadn't talked to in years. And that was like really, really important to him. And for me, it was just, I grew up as a digital native. It was no big deal. And so you don't tend to think about it like that every day, but that really is an amazing part of doing the job. Now, I didn't really get into libraries for that reason. I got into libraries because I'm like customer service type person. I was working at Starbucks in undergrad and didn't know what I wanted to do. Thought maybe I would get a doctorate in something in the humanities, but didn't want to like pigeonhole myself into like, and now I have a doctorate in medieval Japanese Buddhism, which I was, seriously, thinking about something in that narrow. And then you just have to kind of like take whatever job's open. But a friend of mine was like, oh, yeah, I'm considering library science. I was like, oh, I didn't know a library. That's a thing. You can do that. Like you can work in libraries and know a little bit about a lot of different things. And like a professor I had described it as being an intellectual omnivore. And I was like, oh, that speaks to me. So I can work with people. I can know a little bit about a lot of different things, and that's what drew me to it. So it's a little bit more self-centered than you guys. Honorable, noble answers over here, but that's my come to library story.
Our next question is from Tony. Can someone explain Libby, Overdrive, and TRL app? I'm so confused on what is what and why it is. I like the why.
This is an excellent question because we use Libby and Overdrive interchangeably. So I'll just start this by saying Overdrive is the company that provides the ebooks and audiobooks and a lot of our digital catalog. Overdrive used to have an app, also called, conveniently, Overdrive. And then they rebranded that and provided the Libby app. So it's the same company, it's the same thing. Libby, the app, just overtook Overdrive. And now it's sort of morphing into this. People refer to Libby rather than Overdrive, but you can still see Overdrive branding on our dedicated Overdrive catalog if you navigate there. So there's all this confusion, but it's the same thing. Libby, Overdrive, you're really talking about the same company. And the TRL app is completely separate from all of that. That's our own app. It's part of our website relaunch that happened last year, and it connects to our catalog and to our website in like a different form, in app form, but it's not the same thing as the Libby and Overdrive app. So if you want the best ebook and audiobook experience, you use the Libby app.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say Libby is beneficial for end users because you can also stack multiple library cards. Mm-hmm. So I have one for all the systems I've worked in. And so let's say TRL doesn't have a book, I can go to Denver Public Library where I was born and raised, and I can pull up there. I can use my Libby account there and find the materials there. So it allows you to kind of switch between library cards really easily. If we're the only library card you have and the only library card you're interested in using, our app is perfect. If you want to take advantage of multiple library cards from different locations, Libby will give you access to do all that.
That kind of was part of my answer that I didn't say for something that we wish the general public would know about. You just touched on that, reciprocal cards, which is we have agreements with several other library districts in Washington state that you can get a library card just because you have a library card with us. Mm-hmm. And so what you can do, like you said, is you can stack those cards like in Libby. So if we don't have we are going to find your book for you, I think is what's going to happen. So if we don't have your book, then another library system will, and then we also have interlibrary loans.
And different systems have different requirements for getting cards,
Yes, that's worth mentioning.
Based on our reciprocal agreement. So sometimes you have to go there and show your TRL card. Other times you can get it online. But it is a great way to get access to even more materials than you're just getting through us. And before we leave the Libby Overdrive question, I do think it is important because some people ask us about, Libby and Overdrive and kind of, conflate it a little bit with our app, and we don't really have a lot of control over the changes that are made in Libby and Overdrive. And they made a lot of great improvements to the Libby app over the years, but sometimes people get frustrated or confused by something that changes in the Libby app, and we have nothing to do with that most of the time. They'll make a change, they announce it, and we try and make sure that people are aware of that change as much as possible, and we can help you navigate that. But they're moving at their own speed most of the time, serving library districts across the country. So sometimes there's not a lot we can do if they get rid of a feature that you loved. So just plugging that out there.
Well, I was just talking about interlibrary loans, and we have a question about that from Haley or Hallie. I'm not sure. Might be Hallie. What are the most interesting interlibrary loans you've seen? I'd love to see/hear about the Weeded collection too. On a recent episode, we had Kim Storbeck and Jackie Davis from our collection staff. And so we talked about a Weeded collection, which if you didn't listen to that episode, go back and listen. But it basically means items that are, old, not circulating anymore. They're out of date. They're falling apart, those get weeded. And Kim has a collection. We did a little reel about that on our social media about some of her favorite weeds, which included some really very retro
Really
roller
goofy
skating and interior van design and things like that. So maybe we'll do a little piece about that in the future. I don't know.
So some answers from ILL about the most unusual interlibrary loan requests. We once had an ILL for a book with an obscure conspiracy theory, which I'd never heard of. I think it was titled Titanic, the ship that never sank, or something like that. The other one was, during my first year in ILL in 2018, we kept getting requests for this out-of-print title that was hard to find, titled Night of Camp David. Turns out it was a fiction book about a president that had gone insane. Eventually, due to the increased public interest, the publisher decided to reprint the book, and TRL eventually was able to acquire it for the collection. I wonder if we have that right now, actually. I should have looked at that. Night of Camp David. We got the producers looking it up right now, so maybe we'll return to that here in a second.
I know, watch it. It has like 30 holds on it or something already.
I mean,
it will after this
how lucky would you
episode.
be, as the author of this, to write some goofy book about a president that turns insane, and then it's like super popular, and all of a sudden they're reprinting it, and you're like, oh, I'm making money out of nowhere. Like,
That's the dream.
Royalties.
Mhm.
I'm going to start posting like unfounded conspiracy theories online, spreading misinformation, and then
No.
hoping that one of them catches on, and then I can just cash it in.
We don't need any more of that.
We have one copy of this book, I'm being told we do. And also, I'm just kidding about spreading misinformation online. No self-respecting librarian would ever do that.
Our next question is from Kenra. Does the library system have a zine collection available for checkout? A zine is basically a self-published work. I mean, that's like in its most
Basic form.
basic form. It's like a little book or a big book. It can be whatever size you want, but it's self-published, and it's a way to maybe get topics or ideas or things that are maybe underrepresented and like what would actually get published by a publisher. And so they're often handmade. They can be just in different, very unique forms. And the second answer of that is yes, we do have a zine collection. Would any of you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we got a zine collection at the Olympia branch and the Lacey branch. Olympia's is a little bit larger, I believe, but yeah, it's great. There are all sorts of really interesting topics. A lot of like counterculture, DIY ethos goes into zine making. And Olympia and Lacey, I know they collaborate on programs, zine fests throughout the year. I feel like I can't speak on it with a whole lot of authority because it's not coming to mind right now. But yes, we do have zine collections, and we support zine creators in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I can say that I used to work with Naomi, who's in Lacey, and they are way into zines. So if you have any questions, I'd say ask for Naomi. Who's at Olympia? Aggie?
Aggie.
Is it Aggie? Aggie from Olympia and Naomi from Lacey.
Aggie taught me everything I know on
Really?
zines.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth mentioning as well that something that was kind of born out of zines was our Books for Kids by Kids collections, because it's essentially the same idea. It's just specifically for children. And so it was the Lacey branch that started that originally, but now several, is Yelm doing it now? A Book for
We
Kids?
have one.
Okay.
We have two now. He just wrote part two.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
he
a
wrote part
collection. Two
Yes.
is collection. I think Shelton has started doing it. I know that a lot of our other branches are wanting to adopt this because it's been really popular in Lacey, where it's just
It's very cool. I'm so glad you brought that up. I really want to have some of those kid authors on the podcast
Ooh,
at
that
some
would be
point in the
cool.
future, because they've done some of them have been interviewed or have been featured in our newsletters in the past as well, I believe. But the books are just so fun, and the kids speak with such like joy and happiness about having their books included in the collection. It's really cool.
Well, there was a kid that I think some of them are authors that have submitted several books. And I want to say there was one in Lacey who his parents had T-shirts made with the title, and they really make a big deal of it. And they're treated just like every other book in our collection. So they're cataloged, and you can
Barcoded,
find
yeah, all that.
exactly. Maybe that's the word I meant to say. It was barcoded. And so the Books for Kids by Kids collection was born out of the concept of zines, I think. This was a popular question because we asked all of our staff And this question is from Andrew. What's the strangest thing you've found as a bookmark? And before I read some of our submitted answers, which are crazy, I want to hear your responses. The craziest bookmark you've ever found, or weirdest, strangest?
It wasn't crazy what I found, but I found an old family photo that had been forgotten in it. And it actually had her name on the back of it. So it got returned to the owner, but it meant a lot to them. So it was an old, like 50-year-old photo. So that was cool.
I really haven't had anything too crazy. Like, I mean, it's like, oh, a $2 bill. I mean, that's about as crazy as I've gotten inside of that I found in a book.
Well, let's read some of these then.
You start.
Oh, what's that?
You start.
I will start. So these are some weird things that our library staff have found in books, presumably used as bookmarks. Slice of bacon, Polaroid photo with not PG rated content. I'm curious about that one. Toilet paper, surprise, surprise. Also tells you a little bit about where the book was being read.
Ew.
A dime bag of weed. I don't know.
If we can leave that in.
We can. Yeah, somebody's missing that. That's all I'm saying. A whole bag, basically. A nail file, a fork, a popsicle stick with teeth marks.
String cheese, lottery tickets, matchbooks, receipts, slice of ham.
I think that would age a lot worse than the string cheese.
Probably. A used Band-Aid.
It's disgusting.
Pressed flowers. Handwritten note. Spicy squid.
What does that
remember
mean?
The spicy squid. It's probably like, you're going to the grocery store. You only got one thing on your list.
Oh.
Spicy squid. You don't need milk, cheese, bread, eggs, none of that stuff. I'm going for spicy squid. That's how I interpret it.
I think it's like someone like had an idea in the middle of the night and they're like, I know what I should do. And they wrote down like spicy squid and they like went back to sleep.
Oh, that should be my nickname.
And it didn't make sense the next day. Okay, I'm going to take it from here. Crushed tobacco leaves. Cheese. Okay, so we've done cheese twice now. Debit card, which was returned to them. Patron call about a special bookmark. It was a pressed and laminated frog.
Well,
Did that get said right? Patron call about a special bookmark?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Anyway, pressed and laminated frog.
A pressed and laminated frog. A check for $1,000.
Made out
Wow.
to Timberland Regional.
It's a blank check. That was not specified who it was made out to, but it was a check for $1,000.
A used tea bag a patron had to pay for a new copy of the book, a single cigarette, a £1 banknote from the Bank of England, perfectly pressed marijuana leaf.
That's in Centralia, actually. I know exactly where that is. That's kept as a little memento.
Oh.
Yeah. So jury summons, a $2 bill,
Like you said.
a sock, and a prayer book page.
Yeah, we had 53 staff reply in case I didn't specify earlier. And we also wanted to say that we don't advocate for patrons leaving anything.
But we do know that
books.
you're smoking, you're eating cheese, you're in the bathroom, and you got obsession with spicy squid.
This question is from Sammy. Are there other library systems that cover as many counties as you? If there is, where are they and do you work together?
So I will say the entire state of Rhode Island, where I previously worked, is an entire consortium. So I can borrow a book from any public library, like in Rhode Island, any library can borrow from any library in the state. And every library shares, it's one giant, it's like treated as one, like one system.
I think the NCW libraries, which I think stands for North Central Washington, they have over 30 locations and cover 5 counties. In their case, that's Okanogan, Douglas, Chelan, Grant, and Ferry counties. So there are certainly library systems that are of similar size as us, and even if they're not, libraries tend to want to collaborate with one another. Even if that's not interlibrary loan, which are very separate systems, loaning things to one another, geographically close library systems, we tend to want to be collaborative. I'm from the Midwest where the counties are a lot smaller. So there was necessarily collaboration between counties because you just are in closer proximity to your neighbors.
I think that this is a good question to end the podcast on. This is actually from two people. It's from Megan and Lindsay. How can I show support for the library? I see the news about libraries being attacked. As a regular person, what can I do? Should I call local representatives to help with funds? So what can people be doing to support their libraries?
Well, just keep coming to the library. Tell us your concerns. Give us your positive thoughts, your negative thoughts. And as far as the other stuff goes, I would just say social media plays a big part in our lives. And sometimes I make the mistake of going on to local Facebook groups, and I see a lot of the chatter. If you see something that you know is wrong, just speak up and say, hey, go to the library, find out for yourself who they are, what they're doing.
We have a Friends of the Library program in a lot of different branches. That's always a good way to get started. You can get to know people who have similar interests, make friends, but also find out about what the library is doing and how you can support us through there. But beyond that, on a more legislative aspect, when you do talk to representatives, just making sure they know that you value the library. You want to see them get funded. Libraries get funded in a lot of different ways, but just letting people know, your city, your mayors, city councils, letting them know you love the library. From a practical perspective, aside from like letter writing campaigns and stuff like that's something you can do on your own. Join us at the Friends of the Library. Learn about what we're doing. Connect with us. Connect with other like-minded people, and make some friends.
At the very least, use the library. Get your library card. And talk about it too. Yeah. Like before I was paid to talk about the library, I was doing it for free. I was telling to people, why aren't you using your library? Because it's one of these last free spaces that we have that you can go that doesn't expect anything from you, that you can just go and exist and use their resources for free. And I think that that's so meaningful and necessary. And so I think use your library and talk about using your library is helpful.
And just like your county commissioners, your city councils, your elected representatives have emails that you can use and phone numbers you can call, our Timberland Board of Trustees also has an email address that you can email. And if you have a favorite librarian who does an amazing story time in Yelm, or a favorite library manager, they're always happy to hear the positive things that are happening out in the community and what you see and like and appreciate in your library staff on the front lines as well. So typically with anything, you hear the people who are the most excited about something or the least or the most unhappy about something. That's it's the case with restaurant reviews or any sort of Google review you ever see. So if you like the library, take a second to let your board members know. Well, we've covered a lot of ground with these two gentlemen, and we definitely didn't get to every single question. And I want to point out that this episode is not the only place that people can ask us anything. You can literally ask us anything, and people do anytime. We have obviously a staff in the branches. You can give us a call. You can stop by. You can use our chat service, which we mentioned earlier. And we have an email address, asklib@trl.org. That's asklib or asklib if you go to the library. And you can send us an email anytime and ask us anything. Ideally, it's library related. Otherwise, we may not actually be able to help you with it. But so if your question didn't get answered today, send us an email. If you got a question that pops up after you watch this episode, send us an email. Get in touch with us. Librarians are basically here because you can ask us anything. So that's my little closing remark. I want to thank Nate and Stefan for being here with us today.
And I want to thank everybody who sent in your questions. We really appreciate everybody's contribution. And keep them coming. Like Chris said, we can always do another one of these episodes because this was so much fun. And I learned things, and you were both fantastic. So thank you so much for being on this episode with us.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Timberland Library. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at trlpodcast@trl.org.
Original music is by our very own librarian and talented musician, Stefan, at the Yelm branch.
Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep the conversation going. Thank you for being a part of the TRL community.